We are so pleased to welcome to set today the newest member of the Pembroke Board of Selectmen, Jessica Bradley Rushing. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. Here at PACTV Community News, we're going to try to have the newest member of the Select Board of all the towns that we represent onto set to find out a little bit about your background and what you're going to bring to the board.
Great.
So I'd love to ask you, I know a lot of people heard bits and pieces during your campaign for the board position, but let's just kind of go back and revisit how you got here.
Sure.
So you were born and raised in Pembroke?
Well, I was born in the city. We moved to Pembroke when I was in first grade.
Okay.
I went all through school there. I did Hobmock Elementary School,
Yeah.
and then at the time Pembroke was still part of Silver Lake, so I graduated from Silver Lake in the class of '97.
Good girl.
I then went on to Boston University, and while I was at BU, I studied communication and public relations. And I actually participated in the Boston University, Washington, D.C. internship program.
Oh.
So I spent 1 year, my junior year of college, down in D.C. working on Capitol Hill, which was totally a transformative experience.
Yes. What did you do?
I worked for a congressman from Ohio.
Okay.
I worked as a legislative aide. I was an intern, basically. And then, so the office that I worked in, actually, the congressman was really great because he believed that the interns should really do actual work as opposed to
instead
just
of making copies?
Yes, I wasn't making copies and opening mail. I was actually doing legislative research. I wrote a floor statement for the congressman, which was read on the floor.
Great.
And I was 20 years old watching this happen,
Wow.
thinking, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And then after the semester ended, I actually was hired on by the congressman to stay for the summer, and I worked still as a legislative aide, and I actually coordinated their intern program for the summer. Then I
Great.
went back to Boston for my senior year of college, and because I had so enjoyed the work I had done in D.C., I actually contacted the office of Congressman Joe Moakley in Boston,
Yeah.
who I worked in his office then for my senior year of college. I think I was only there 1 or 2 days a week because I was still in class.
But you enjoyed the work.
But I loved
Yeah,
it. And
yeah.
so I got a different point of view than working in a district office as opposed to working on Capitol Hill.
Oh, sure.
And I worked with him right up until he passed away. And then that was just after I graduated from school. I then went on and got a position at a public relations firm in Boston. So I worked right in Copley Square. And my second day of work actually was September 11th, 2001. So I was in Boston when all that happened, and we were, watching on the TV.
Yeah.
And
everybody remembers where they were.
Exactly.
Yep.
Like you can describe the day in minute detail. But within a couple weeks, probably 2 weeks after that, I started actually speaking to military recruiters because I felt like I couldn't sort of just sit home and watch as friends and family that I knew in the military, we knew were going to be engaged in something.
Right.
So I started talking to recruiters, and I enlisted in the Army on December 7th of that year.
Good for you.
And it was a huge decision to make because I had just graduated from college, and that certainly had not been initially my plan of what I was going to do next. But I'm really grateful that I did because it was one of the best choices I've ever made. My military experience was fantastic.
What did you do exactly in the military? What was your different
I enlisted
roles?
as a reservist. I was a civil affairs specialist.
Okay,
so
which
civil
means?
affairs is essentially a military government liaison position.
Okay, so again, communication.
Yes,
Okay.
for sure,
Yep.
communication. I did that. I went to basic training, AIT, came back and drilled.
What's AIT?
AIT is where you actually learn your job.
Okay.
It's where you learn your specific job. So that's
Okay.
where I learned the civil affairs specialty.
Okay.
And then I came back, and my unit was in Rhode Island. So I drilled with my unit for, I don't know, a year or something like that. And then was given the position to go to the Defense Language Institute, which is in Monterey, California.
Okay.
So I went there. That is an active duty position, and I went there and learned Russian.
So you speak Russian?
A little bit.
Wow.
I did at the time when I graduated from the school in 2003. I was fairly fluent.
Yeah. I'm sure you've lost a little
but
of it.
it's hard when you don't have anybody to practice with. That's where I met my husband. So he was there as well for a foreign language, but he studied Arabic. So unfortunately, we can't speak to one another in the foreign languages that we learned. I think both of us would have kept up our language skills a little bit better if we had been in the same language.
Right,
but
right.
That was not what the
Yeah.
outcome was. So
Okay. So what
sometimes,
happened
I
from
can
there?
recall some of the Russian, but I don't use it enough
Yeah.
anymore.
So what happened from there?
So I met my husband at DLI. We got married.
Yeah.
He was active duty and I was a reservist. So
Yeah.
I stayed on reserve duty. I came back here to the East Coast, did a bunch of reserve months, went back to California, and then it turned out, so the Army requires you to have something called a family care plan.
Yep.
If both parents, if
yep.
both spouses
Yep.
are in the military.
Military, yep.
And we unfortunately did not have an adequate family care plan because just I'm the oldest of 3 kids. Both of my
Okay.
sisters were still in school. My husband's an only child. Both
Okay.
of our parents were all still working full time, and so we basically were given the option that I could take a medical discharge while I was pregnant, or I would be discharged regardless, because you had to have a family care plan, and ours just basically wasn't good enough.
I don't understand what that means. What
It-
do you
it's
mean
a
you have
family
to
care
have a
plan,
family care plan?
is a very detailed plan describing what would happen to your dependent if both of us were deployed.
Okay, because both of you are in the
Because both of us were in the
military. I
military,
gotcha.
we
Okay.
knew we were both going to
Okay.
end up deployed,
Yep.
and we did not have an adequate plan saying where our daughter would go.
Sure.
And it's very detailed, the
Of course.
information that you have to have.
I
So
didn't know that existed, and that's wonderful that
it
does
is good.
exist.
It is good.
Yeah.
It was unfortunate that we could not meet the requirements essentially without. She would have been. Probably had gone. We had no idea what would
Okay.
happen. So anyway, I got out of the military in 2004. It's been a long time.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
And then my husband was still in. He actually deployed when my daughter was 2 weeks old. So
Wow. Where was he deployed to?
he went to Kuwait.
Oh.
So while he was gone, my daughter and I, she was born in Boston. We
Mm-hmm.
came back here and lived in Pembroke while he was gone. At that time, I was going to the Pembroke Military Support Group meetings a lot.
Yes.
And they were so
They're
amazing
wonderful.
in
Yep.
helping me and my daughter, and my
Yeah.
mom would go with me a lot, get through what
Yeah.
was kind of a rough 6 months while he
Sure.
was gone. And then we went back to, he was stationed in Georgia at the time. When he got out of the military, we moved to D.C.
Okay.
And we were there for 10 years.
What did you do in D.C.?
Both of us worked for a government consulting firm, Booz Allen Hamilton, on DoD contracts. So it
Department
was
of Defense
yes,
contracts.
Department of
Okay.
Defense contracts.
Okay.
Sorry. So I actually worked on a Department of Defense contract for. The office has since been renamed, but it was the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Networks and Information Integration.
Again, information.
Yes.
Communications.
Yes.
Okay.
This is.
So there's a current theme in your life.
It is. Communications is really my passion because I believe that unless we're all coming from the same page and unless we're all have access to the right information, it's
Yeah.
really hard to connect with people.
Of course
and
it is, yeah.
And that as a baseline, having a good communication system is one of the most important things that any organization, group, company can do.
Can do, right. So what do you do now? For now you moved back to Pembroke? You've been back about
Yes, we came back last year.
1 year, okay.
But before we came back here, we actually lived in England for 3 years.
Oh.
So we
Was
went
he
from
stationed
D.C.
over there?
Yes, my
Okay.
husband took a position with Booz Allen. We went from D.C. for 10 years to England for 3 years.
Wow.
Which was really, really an amazing experience.
Yeah.
We were worried a little bit, but the kids were at good ages. They went to a British school. My husband worked on an American base, but we lived in a
Yeah.
village just a couple miles away
That's
from
really
the base.
great for kids.
It was amazing,
Yeah.
and they adapted so well, and they learned so much, and we were really lucky to be able to travel a lot while we were over
Yes,
there. So
yes.
I think it made them see the bigger world
Yeah.
a little bit, and
And I think kids become way more efficient.
yes,
They learn to be very self-sufficient too, which is in this day and age where a lot of people think that children are coddled too much.
oh right, no, yeah.
It's really great to hear that.
They're
That's wonderful.
expert travelers.
Yeah,
they are
that's great.
expert travelers.
That's good.
And I think it actually helped them learn that even though we knew nobody in the entire country when we moved there.
Yeah.
But all of my kids went in, they made friends, they thrived in the
Kids
school that they were
make
in.
friends.
Yes. And so then
what
when
they
we
do.
moved here,
Yeah.
it was much less scary because
Sure.
they had been coming here to visit multiple times
Yep.
a year their entire lives. All my family is still in this area.
Right.
So
it's
it wasn't
coming home.
scary
Nope.
to move here.
And for you, it was coming
for me,
home.
it was
Yeah.
for me, it was really coming home.
Yeah.
And we've been here now since last year. And
So what made you decide to run?
so when you move back to the place where you grew up, it's very different to see your home through the eyes, of an adult and a parent. I was
Yeah.
22 when I left.
Yeah.
And now coming back I just turned 40.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. It's a different perspective.
Sure.
And I really felt like I could bring something to the town and to the board that was missing. The people who serve on the board have been serving for a long time, and it's amazing that people are willing to dedicate the kind of time
know.
and effort that it takes
Yep.
to be on these boards.
That's true.
But I do think that having sort of a new voice and new ideas can make a big difference, because this is my home and I understand the town well, but I've also got the perspective and the experiences of having lived in other places and seen how things are done other places in other ways.
Sure. And I think you're right that the group, any select board, and the town manager or administrator that they work with is really only as good as the sum of all its parts.
Right.
You know, and everybody does bring something very unique to a board.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're so interested in communication is really something that is lacking in almost all boards. And it's not the fault of the board.
No.
It's more, it's how you perceive what needs to be told. It's like you've already started right after a select board meeting. I've noticed you go on Facebook and you kind of give an update of this is quickly what happened.
Yep.
So that people who don't have the hour to watch or the hour and a half, or however it is, to watch the actual meeting, get, oh, okay, so those are the things that were covered at the meeting.
Right.
It's nice. Reading the minutes of the meeting can be dull, and I think what you're doing here is great, and I'm sure that everybody on the board actually appreciates it, because sometimes you're really the unsung heroes. People on that board, people have no idea the amount of work that goes into the amount of the taxing time, the contracts, the institutional knowledge that they have that people will never understand that, and they do it for nothing.
Right.
I mean, they do it because they're serving their town.
Right.
So it's wonderful that you're going to be a part of this group and this board, and there's a lot of challenges in Pembroke and in any town, and your first course of business is to improve communication.
Right. And I think that the people who live in Pembroke it's a great town to live in. People love the community, the schools are good, and people care. And they want to give back and they want to get involved, but it's not always easy to know how.
Right.
And unless you have a way to get all that information that really sort of fits in people's busy lives, then it's hard to get involved and it's hard to even know where to start. So having just a 5-minute recap of what happened at those meetings, I think enables more people to say, oh, this is not something necessarily that applies to me, but this other issue is something that I really want to pay attention to and see what's going on there, because it might affect my life.
Right.
And I think local town government, it has a huge impact every single day on all of our lives in a way that not a lot of people realize. I mean, we're all tracking on, federal and state issues a lot more because that's what's in the news.
That's right.
But what you don't realize is, the every single day stuff that affects you is being decided at the town and local level.
That's right.
So having an idea of what's going on the boards and commissions and committees that are doing the work in town enables more people to get involved in the process, and that's just good for everybody.
That is good for everybody. And it's also a part of not everybody stays in town forever.
Right.
Your property values are tied to what your town is overall.
Right.
It's the big picture. So if you're not looking at anything and not paying attention to anything all along, you don't understand why your town is valuable or less valuable.
Right.
Well, this is great. So we're going to look forward to more communications from the board. Good luck. Congratulations on your win. And we'll have you back again probably after a year or so to kind of do a recap on your first year. How's that sound?
That sounds good. I'm 2 meetings in now, so I should have more to say then.
Okay. And thank you very much for watching. Again, we have had Jessica Bradley Rushing on, who is the newest member of the Pembroke Board of Selectmen. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching PACTV Community News.